Okay folks, well Alex Woods here, a cohabitation, property dispute and child maintenance expert. Now I just wanted to deal with this issue which overlaps cohabitation, property disputes. Look, you may have a cohabitation dispute, you may have separated from your partner, but you've now got the issue of a child. And that kind of completely, quite fundamentally changes the complexion of the way that you deal with the dispute. You go to a lawyer because you've got a dispute, but whereas in a cohabitation property dispute piece of litigation, then it's quite simply you can sue the hell out of your partner. You might never go to see them again. They might be living in a completely different part of the world. I mean, you don't want to be unduly aggressive and nasty, of course, but the fact is that you can be a little bit more straightforward and direct in the way you go about resolving the dispute and getting a fair share of property. What of course is it just completely flips it around 180 degrees is where there's a kid involved, where there's a child involved. So this is just a whistle-stop tour around this issue if you're the first time you found yourself in this position as a mother or as a father, and you want a little bit of a lead, a little bit of a steer on the way that the law is likely to treat the issue. Okay, I'm going to be doing other vlogs in due course on sort of rather specialist areas that may be more sort of fact specific to your issue, but for the moment bear with me. I'm just going to talk in a general way and set the framework and give you an overview. Okay, so in the courts and in the system rather of England and Wales, what you'll find is that you may have a property, you've separated, there's a child involved, there's obviously therefore the child maintenance issue. In terms of the way that the system works, I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson on this. Back in the day, a couple of decades ago, the courts dealt with issues over child maintenance, whether it was just a child maintenance payment, whether it was a lump sum payment for, I don't know, property or purchase of an asset. Let's say the mother was moving out of the family home with the child, then you could apply for a lump sum payment. Now, these issues were dealt by the courts, but then the what is now called the Child Maintenance Service had a different name when it was set up. It's now called the Child Maintenance Service, is the government body that deals with the issue of child maintenance to take away the costly, expensive and very contentious arena of the courts when it comes to the issue, family issues of couples who are separating and there's an argument over who pays for what in respect to the child. Now, you can go on to the Child Maintenance Service website and you can actually, online, fill in a form which will just go through a calculator which will tell you as a parent what you have to pay in respect of maintenance costs per month, per week for your child. Now, the first thing to say, however, is that the Child Maintenance Service, in sort of tandem with the Child Benefit Office, will decide on who is the parent with care and who is a non-resident parent. Now, in 90% of cases, the parent with care is the mother. And probably in most cases, it's the father who's moving out. But that's not always the situation. But to give the general idea, there you have a mother who's staying in the family home with a child. The father may be wondering, how he goes about getting an idea of what child maintenance he should be paying. He shouldn't just be paying for his ex to live lavishly in a wealthy manner which she's become accustomed. This isn't a divorce issue. This is still just a child maintenance issue. What the Child Maintenance Service, the Child Benefit Office will look at is the gross income of the father. So look at the gross income of the father, and to say, you can go onto this calculator and punch in all the relevant information, including obviously your gross income, and it will then give a figure that the father, the non-resident parent, will have to pay to the mother, the parent with care. Let's say you're earning 50 grand, it might give you a figure, for argument's sake, around about 150 or 200 or something, or a bit more. And it will also make deductions in respect of whether or not, just how many nights you have the child. It's very rarely that the mother has 100% custody of the child. She may have 75%. Now, the number of nights that the child spends with the father will then be deducted and reduce that amount of child maintenance that he pays. Go online and you can do this very easily. There's a green little button, child maintenance calculator. Now, here's the issue. I mean, sometimes it's not 100% clear who the parent with care is and who the non-resident parent is. Now, the Child Benefit Office is a factor here. Now, you can claim for child benefit if you've got a child. What do you get? 15 quid, 20 quid a week, something small. But it's quite an important issue because the Child Benefit Office decides which of the parents, whether there's a split, is receiving the child benefit in respect of that child. And they make a decision based on various factors, often to do simply with who's sort of doing the work in terms of the care of the child, driving them to the school or taking them to the doctors, or who is entitled to receive the benefit. It's usually on that criteria rather than who's the bigger earner criteria. So those are criteria that the Child Benefit Office use. And then they've made the decision, they've decided which of the parent is going to be receiving the child benefit. And the Child Maintenance Service will decide who is the parent with care and who is a non-resident parent based upon the decision that the Child Benefit Office have made. So if the Child Benefit Officer said you're getting child benefit, they'll likely make that person the parent with care. Now it sounds very logical and natural, but it can actually create injustice. For example, you have a case where, let's say, one of the parties, let's say the wife is on a 6 or even a 7-figure salary, okay, and the father is unemployed, and let's say that the father's had to move out of the house, and let's say he's taken the child with him because the wife is too busy earning mega bucks, and he's got let's say 50% of care, but let's say he has 45% of the care. She is the one who's receiving child benefit, and therefore there's a presumption that he is not the parent with care, he's a non-resident parent, and therefore he's got to pay money to her in respect of child maintenance. So, even though she's on a very big income and he's forced to have incurred the cost of renting property because they've separated and she's remained in the home. So that's just an example of the way in which you could see an injustice could be created. So so there's the way that, broadly speaking, the Child Benefit Office and the Child Maintenance Service operate. It is, a bureaucratic, administrative type arrangement. They do their very best, but your case may not be appropriate for that system. And there may be complexities. Now, the question then becomes, can the courts get involved? If you're unhappy with the Child Maintenance Service, it does have an appeal procedure. You can get in front of a single judge. It's a very informal affair. But let's say you want to go to the courts. Well, the courts will only look at your case in, certain unusual circumstances. They will only look at your case, for example, if you, let's say, one example would be where the parent who's meant to be paying is on a very high income, let's say above £3,000 a week. Then the courts may interfere, if you like, and make assessments over and above and basically take over power from the Child Maintenance Service. So there may be lump sum payment for a particular provision of the child, education needs perhaps an expensive private school, or as I say, accommodation or something of that nature. There again, the courts may get involved. So the courts, although they're not the primary port of call for child maintenance issues, they have these residual powers, and they may, in certain circumstances, get involved where there are injustices in the system. So broadly speaking, and to summarise, yes, your first port of call if you've split and you've got a child is the Child Maintenance Service, the Child Benefit Office. Make sure you register, resolve the issue of who is receiving child benefit, because that will impact on the Child Maintenance Service. Won't even consider your application if you're not the parent with care. All right. Now, if there are complications, as I say, go onto the Child Maintenance Service website and look at the calculator if you need to. If there are complications there, then you may need to go the court route, and the courts do have residual powers in certain areas. For example, where you're a high income earner, or where you're looking for a lump sum payment. In certain cases, for example, where you feel that there might have been an injustice in the system, you can make an application to court for a lump sum payment to cover your costs, your legal costs of appealing what you think is an unfair decision of the Child Maintenance Service. Child Maintenance Service does have an appeal process, but it's not as copper-bottomed as court procedure, and it can be a little bit too informal, a little bit too not heavyweight enough. The person who's sitting in, if you object to the Child Maintenance Service and you do appeal, then you will have a little hearing, and it will be with a judge, someone sitting, but there won't necessarily be a lot of care and a lot of attention, a lot of preparation done into your case. So there it is. That's, broadly speaking, an overview. I will go on to talk about more complex matters in other vlogs. As regards the property itself, well, it may be that the property can be dealt with completely separately of the child. But and you can almost have two different claims, yeah. And if you could go through the Child Maintenance Service in respect of that issue, but in respect of what share of the property you feel is entitled to, you may go through more of a conventional court route. But obviously, be aware of the fact that it may impact on the child, and if a child has left a family home, then you may have to go, in a way, the more traditional family route and apply to the courts for a lump sum payment or for release of equity from the property, or even, even if you're a parent, you're looking after a child, you may look for an order that gets you sole control of that property, or some equity interest in the long term of that property in respect of the child. Like when the child reaches 18, you might have an arrangement where you're allowed to live in that property, but it's owned by the other partner until the child reaches his 18th birthday. Those are all sorts of things that you will want to go the court route. Now, of course, it goes without saying that before you do go anywhere near a court, you should first go and you try and attempt to resolve your dispute by means of a mediator. So that's important to remember. You would need to mediate prior to going to the courts. Okay, there it is. Hope that's been of use. Bye for now.